It's a welcome Christmas present for Hunter coal producers and their Asian buyers.
$580 million of today's investment will be used to expand capacity and rail corridors to service the Hunter.
The government claims export capacity will rise from 97 to 200 million tonnes per year.
That will more than double the capacity of the rail network in the Hunter. That is critical for our export performance.
The federal government has been under pressure from Japanese and Chinese governments over the cold chain bottlenecks.
There is no doubt that Australia as a nation can from time to time be embarrassed by not being able to get its exports onto the water.
New South Wales Ports Minister Joe Tripodi has been urged to find a solution, and today he announced a plan to offer land to Port Waratah Coal Services to build a fourth coal loader, which he says could see coal capacity tripled at the port.
Both levels of government are doing a lot of work to see this capacity expanded, and indeed it's a really important part of our economic future.
Meanwhile, the University of Newcastle will receive $15 million from the federal infrastructure package, but there is no money for the F3 to Branxton link. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
The state Labor government just can't make up its mind when it comes to keeping or cutting the Newcastle rail line. In 2004, Transport Minister Michael Costa said the line would go. But by 2006, the new minister, John Watkins, had decided it would stay.
Maintaining rail services into Newcastle, because that's very strongly what the community of Newcastle has called for.
But according to the government, they're not calling for it anymore, and Newcastle MP Jodie McKay is doing the backpedalling.
We made a decision to keep the rail line, and that was because of community sentiment. Now, I think people have spoken very loudly over the last few months about the need to revitalise the city and the fact that the rail line needs to be looked at as part of that.
But the attitude hasn't actually changed. The community still favours keeping the rail line right into Newcastle.
The Save Our Rail group is staging a public meeting on the issue at the Newcastle Leagues Club in National Park Street tomorrow at midday.
I don't think we should accept what is just there because it's always been there.
Paul Lobb, NBN News.
On a day when Hunter Water fronted IPART to explain why it needs to double prices and build the controversial Tilligra Dam to drought-proof the region, what did it do? It rained. The irony wasn't lost on the Hunter Water boss, who maintains it's crucial we invest in infrastructure now.
The extra $1 a day for customers will cover continuing clean beaches and investment in our assets and protection of the environment.
The dam makes up 9% of the price hike. Kevin Young told the hearing our storages go up and down like a fiddler's elbow, and if we don't do Tilligra, we would do desalination. Under Hunter Water's submission, existing customers would pay $33 a year and developers about $1,400 per block for the $400 million dam.
It's going to place significant financial hardship on these households.
If they sign off on this tax, they're signing the Hunter property industry's death warrant.
They're struggling to justify it because it's a political decision. It's not a good water planning decision.
The tribunal chair described the hike as a very unusual price increase, adding Sydney Water didn't ask for as much.
The tribunal's finding has always been less, and I expect this will be no different.
A draft report will be released in March with a final decision expected in June. Penny Evans, NBN News. There certainly seems to be more parking available at the John Hunter Hospital.
There was as many as 200 to 400 people on our busiest days unable to find a car park, and since we've made the changes there hasn't been that pressure.
The new fees have been in place for just on a month, but people's behaviour is already changing. Patronage on the free shuttle bus from Energy Australia Stadium is up 80% and
about 65% of people using the car park are actually staying 2 hours or less, which means that they were paying less than they would have done under the previous arrangements.
Hunter Health says there's been few complaints, but visitors we canvassed today weren't impressed.
Dreadful. It's too expensive. My partner gave birth to twins yesterday, and here I'm paying up to $10 to $12 a day for parking to come and visit. It's a joke.
Others miss the special offers.
There's no such thing as a weekly pass to make it a little bit more reasonable.
We've had a daughter in here for 7 weeks, and her sisters can't afford to pay $10 a day parking fee, and the weekly pass was a really good option.
Well, we don't believe that's needed.
Penny Evans, NBN News.
For most of these teenagers, dropping out of the state school system saved their education. For a range of reasons, they weren't a good fit in the traditional classroom, but have since found success with an independent school and were today graduating with a range of high school qualifications.
I dropped out of high school and I didn't want to go back to school, but once I started there, it was kind of like I never wanted to leave.
Newcastle's Alesco Learning Centre is expanding its daytime high school program to offer a school certificate course that can be completed in 1 year, 4 nights a week.
It can give those young people also the opportunity to continue to work during the day, or if they have family commitments during the day, they can do that and then come to school at night.
The new course, which starts next year, is open to 18 to 24-year-olds who want to complete their basic schooling.
If a young person doesn't have that base qualification of the school certificate, they find it very hard then to move on to a better job, to further education.
A more flexible learning environment has helped students like Chris, who today graduated Year 11.
I've got another year to go, doing Senior 2, and then after that hopefully go to university.
Paul Lobb, NBN News.
Stepping off a flight this morning, Joel Griffiths went straight back to work with his teammates and even did some extras with his brother Adam after the session. It's on Sunday though, against Queensland. He really wants to stand out.
I'm going to try to make up for lost ground. I think the team deserves that. I apologise to the team, and now it's up to me to change things.
Suspended for 2 games after lashing out against Wellington almost 3 weeks ago, the Jets have since slipped to last spot, but at least with time on their hands.
We've got to start performing because we've not only got the A-League coming up, we've also got the ACL, and we don't want to, let Australia down, let alone Newcastle fans.
He and Mark Milligan will add plenty of experience to the Jets lineup, but Song remains in doubt with his ankle still proving a real issue.
I'd rather not risk him and make sure he's right for the following game against Melbourne.
So keen is Jeremy Edwards to get a spot at the Newcastle Knights, his family drove him from Darwin to attend a recent juniors training camp at Myuna Bay. It seems it was worth the drive.
One of the coaching staff approached me last night after the first 2-hour session. He's gone, "Is Jeremy Edwards available for selection?"
He wouldn't even be in the mix though if it wasn't for James McManus. He put Edwards on the club's radar and could well follow him here for the long term.
His attitude is fantastic, and he comes from a good family, and I think I think there could be big things for him.
As for the top grade, they'll get their first feel for what life will be like playing under 2 referees at a special training session tomorrow. It was finals day for the Australian Schools Basketball Championship, which wrapped up at 3 venues in the Hunter today. In the Division 4 Senior Girls Final, Newcastle High proved too strong for Sydney's Redlands. Captain Sophie Kleeman was a standout, scoring 28 of her team's 53 points as they comfortably won the title. Muswellbrook was another Hunter team to perform well, narrowly winning their junior boys division. And after equine influenza stopped it last year, the 51st Newcastle Harness Racing Cup will be raced tomorrow night. Nidja won it 2 years ago, but it's Dubbo's Carlu Mick which is favoured in early betting.
The New Zealand tug was en route from New Caledonia to Newcastle when it was called to assist the exhausted solo rower, the crew happy to help. Inside the small rowboat, Alex was battling difficult currents and wild weather, 130 nautical miles northeast of Newcastle.
And we just kind of altered course and started driving around in circles looking for him, and we couldn't see him, but he let off a electronic signal to say where he was, and so once we found that, it wasn't too difficult really,
They pulled him aboard, tied his boat up for towing, then whipped up a feast for the hungry Italian adventurer who'd covered 18,000 kilometres in 295 days.
Pizza, steaks, potatoes, a jar of peanut butter, pack of cookies. Everything. Yeah, he just kept going.
And while he was grateful, Alex was disappointed he didn't reach Sydney.
I didn't put the cherry on top of the cake, but the cake was made,
Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
James Holland signalled his prodigious talent right from the start. And his star has only risen since, with an A-League premiership, Socceroo selection and an Olympics, all on an impressive resume, and he's still a teenager. Always destined to go overseas, a Dutch club has won the battle for his services on a transfer deal said to be bigger than that of Nicky Carl's move in 2007, which netted the Jets more than $650,000.
It's just when the opportunity knocks, and the opportunity's knocked now for James, and I'm be honest with you, I'm wrapped for the bloke.
But the obvious club leak was hardly good timing for a side preparing for a must-win game against Queensland, coupled with confirmation yesterday of Jade North's departure at Christmas and increased speculation over Mark Milligan's future. Van Egmond did what he could to focus his troops, including issuing a media ban.
I can assure you the speculation over the three boys, they're giving their utmost to ensure that they give their best performance between now and when they leave.
If frustrated, he did his best to hide it today, and with the hint, good news on recruitment isn't far away.
It's a case of us making sure that the gaps that do get vacated get filled with quality.
Hardly the weather for a day at the beach, but while the rain cleared, big surf remained at Catherine Hill Bay, and it proved a real test for some of the best in the state. Hunter's Josh Blair is getting back into serious competition for the first time in a year, but he must have had second thoughts after this in the Ironman final. He recovered from that to still finish second. There was a real-life rescue in the Iron Woman final. Sydney's Alex Fleming breaking her leg after a fellow competitor's ski came crashing down on her. No such dramas in the men's open board final, other than the thrilling finish. Any number of competitors could have won it as a bunch caught the very same wave to the beach. It came down to a sprint to the line, and McMaster's beach clubby Trent Martin was the quickest at that. Team and craft events feature tomorrow.
The aim is to make the public aware of the fact that this is a Navy Cadet unit here, and certainly we welcome applications from both male and females. 12.5 to 19 they can stay.
Some of the circumstances are similar, but not all. And as I said, it's too early in the investigation to ascertain exactly what link there is between those two robberies.
HMAS Newcastle was a popular lady this morning. After all, it's not every day a warship anchors in her namesake city and invites the locals on board. Not just a chance for the proud crew to show off their office, the open day is a recruitment opportunity too good to miss.
There's Defence Force recruiting on the wharf here, which is fantastic. That just increases the overall awareness of defence, especially the ship. And also a chance for the ship's crew to mix with the people, the city of Newcastle.
Obviously not thinking about their careers just yet, the young visitors were most impressed by the ship's weaponry and size.
The rocket, the blue rocket. I like the big rocket and these big guns.
The ship weighs more than 4,000 tonnes, so that's pretty big.
As the public toured the ship, some of its 180 crew took the rare opportunity to stretch their sea legs with a game of touch football. Two teams from HMAS Newcastle took on teams from the Port Corporation, the fire brigades and the police in a round-robin style competition.
Just outdoor activities and really to be able to come together with a community on the sports field is so important.
For the record, the Fireys took out the comp. Lauren Bladwell, NBN News.
With 68 years in the top grade, Easts Rugby agreed today that history is worth fighting for. Club members discussed their options before later meeting with a Sydney-based legal firm to devise plans of overturning a decision made last week, which saw them demoted from the NHRU's Premier Division. Cricket, and Mitchell Marsh, son of former Australian Test batsman and national coach Jeff, has starred for West Australia today at the National Under-19s Championships in Newcastle, featuring in their 2020 games today. Needing to pass Tasmania's total of 87 inside 16 overs to earn a bonus point, Marsh cracked a 6 with a ball to spare. Hunter has finished fourth at the Interbranch Surf Life Saving Championships at Catherine Hill Bay. Nobbies represented Hunter in the women's surf boats, but finished out of the top placings. It was Dixon Park in the men's. They settled for second, behind Sydney Northern Beaches. There aren't too many standing start harness races these days, and Panorama Swing was one of many lining up in the Newcastle Cup who'd never raced in one before. That may change now after winning the 2,550 metre feature last night. And at $4.50 the winners well from Jarandon and Carlu Mick.
As an industrial hub, the Hunter had a lot to lose, depending on how high Kevin Rudd's team set their expectations and the emissions reduction target. The Business Chamber believes the 5% goal shows the Commonwealth listened to concerns of industry, and it may be enough to stop local jobs heading overseas.
It's a target which is achievable and a target which industry can then shape into and build into its business models for the next 10 or 15 years.
The Hunter Valley Research Foundation modelled possible impacts on the region before the white paper's release.
There's nothing that's going to be catastrophic for any of the industries right this second, but it's a question of what are they going to invest, why are they going to reinvest.
More local companies should be eligible for assistance after the government lowered requirements for carbon permits, and electricity generators should benefit from a multi-billion-dollar purse to clean up coal-fired power stations.
They're trying to make the transition relatively smooth, but at the same time the whole point of it is to put pressure on high emission intensive industries.
It seems to us like the Rudd government is trying to fool the Australian population into believing that they're doing something about climate change, but then they're having backroom meetings with all of the powerful industry lobbyists in the country.
Penny Evans, NBN News.
Anyone that knows anyone that is doing this and doesn't come forward is equally as guilty of the offence by hiding it. So we'd ask them to come forward.
It's a scourge across the city, and Newcastle Council wants to stamp it out. General Manager Lindy Hyam has discovered the eNose device, which continuously monitors airborne chemicals and sniffs out spray paint. She thinks it could be the perfect weapon, along with CCTV and increased police patrols, to wage war on vandals.
We first saw it on the New Inventors program and are keen to investigate the possibilities of utilising it in this council area.
Invented by scientists Graham Bell and Brian Hibbert, the device is connected to an alarm system which activates seconds after detecting aerosol spray. It can recognise a 4-second burst of spray paint at 45 metres. The invention is the size of a small shoebox and can be hidden from the view of vandals. It can be installed inside a wall to protect important buildings around the city. Council currently spends more than $350,000 a year on removing graffiti and preventing it.
It really is an issue that's extremely difficult to control and a very costly one as well. It needs constant monitoring, painting out every day.
If approved, Newcastle would be the first council to implement the device. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News. This was the Morning Light back in February 2007, when the Salvation Army Employment Plus project was launched. The 90-year-old yacht made from New Zealand Cowrie had seen better days, but with an army of 100 Work for the Dole participants keen to learn woodwork and shipwright skills, it was clear she would sail again. Fast forward 1 year and 10 months, and this is the grand old girl, looking a bit grey from the primer, but certainly very shipshape, complete with a new engine.
It was just a total gutted hull. From there we've splined all the hull, refitted out the internals and built it back to its original design.
Originally called Grace, the yacht once charted the Mile Lakes before being converted to a ketch which has 2 masts. It's now reverting to its former name and restored to accommodate a single timber mast.
If anyone's got a mast out there that they'd like, a timber mast that they'd like to donate, we'd be very much appreciative.
It was an emotional farewell as she was moved from her home of the PCYC at Broadmeadow.
From here the boat will go over to a shed over in Maryville where the final finishings will be done, the painting and final fit outs. Hopefully it'll be launched just before Easter long weekend where it will be displayed at the Heritage Afloat.
She'll then be auctioned with profits going to the PCYC. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News. It's an ability most parents take for granted. But for Kevin Gades, being able to pick up 8-month-old daughter Avery unassisted is something special. It's just one of the 40-year-old's new talents. This is another. It's not easy, but with extreme concentration, the aid of calipers and a walker, Kevin takes tentative steps.
I'm still looking for the right word to describe it, but kind of stop yourself in your tracks every once in a while and go, wow, am I doing this?
Kevin's spine was severed in a car accident 14 years ago in his native Canada. He says he's always lived a full life, but when he heard about the work of Indian doctor Geeta Shroff in treating spinal cord injuries, he saw an opportunity for improvement.
I had spoken to a few other patients that had been there and the physician herself before I went and decided, what do I have to lose?
Kevin spent $40,000 and 9 weeks in Dr. Shroff's Delhi clinic, undergoing multiple injections of what the doctor claims are stem cells derived from a single discarded embryo, left over from IVF work. The exact formula is a secret, and many in the Western medical world are sceptical. But Kevin, a healthcare professional himself, is convinced.
I feel as if there's a burning, a tingling, a deep, heavy feeling in every part of my body below my level of injury.
It still takes hard work, intense physiotherapy part of the process.
Every day, 2 hours of physio plus, and until we get somebody else in to assist us, which we're hoping to do, then I'm there every day doing it with him, and I think that's a real honour. I get to be a part of the process.
Kevin is keen to spread the word of his experience and is lobbying for such treatment to be made available here. But that could be some way off. As yet, there have been no medical trials of embryonic stem cells, and the Australian Stem Cell Centre's view is that while promising, their use is unproven and even potentially dangerous. Kevin, meantime, is heading back to India in March for another round of treatment.
My ultimate goal is to forget about using a wheelchair.
It was a case of the same tune but a different day for the Newcastle Jets, returning with nothing more than hard luck stories from Brisbane and faint finals hopes extinguished.
We've got a lot of things to play for, and pride is one of them. It's very important just to stick together.
It was a night that started like so many before this season. Returning from suspension, Joel Griffiths got the ball rolling, posting his 8th goal in 10 games against Queensland. But once again, things unravelled from there. On the stroke of half-time came this. There was more to come. Joe Wilhouse earning a second booking, and he had every right to see red over that call. He now can't play this Friday night, but his loss last night was more immediate on Newcastle as they desperately clung on. And again, in injury time, came the cruelest blow. Not if you're a Jets fan. On Friday, it's Melbourne.
I'm up for the battle, and I'm sure the boys are as well.
This is the leading team in the Dutch League, AZ Alkmaar. They consolidated their title lead with a win over Feyenoord at the weekend, and late tomorrow, James Holland will join them.
It is a massive opportunity, and it's sort of like it's a goal I set. Hopefully, it will lead to bigger and better things in the future.
Still to sort out the finer points of the deal, AZ want him for 5 years, highlighting just what they think of the teenage talent. The transfer deal with Newcastle is reportedly more than the $650,000 they got for the then A-League Player of the Year, Nicky Carl, in 2007, meaning the money Holland is now commanding would leave most teenagers spellbound.
I've got my older sister and my mum to look after that. Nah, look, at the end of the day, it's not about the money for me. I get to do what I love. What you get paid for is just a bonus, I suppose.
He's already crammed in plenty since his A-League debut only 14 months ago, with an Olympics, Socceroos selection and a premiership to his name. But you get the feeling this move will only lead to greater success.
It's all come quickly. I've enjoyed the ride. Hopefully there's more to come as well.
Jim Callanan, NBN News.
It's not quite the tale of a partridge in a pear tree, but one Lake Macquarie family found some unusual decorations in a Christmas tree they bought from the Kawani charity on Saturday.
And took the tree home, and then they heard these little bird noises, and when they opened up the tree, had a good look inside, they could see there's a nest of these 6 little tiny birds.
Red-browed finches, in fact, a native species to much of New South Wales. But they'd come a lot further than their little wings could carry them. The tree was cut down in Oberon in the state's central west and then trucked to Newcastle.
There's no injuries, nothing broken. It really is a miracle that they're alive.
The birds are about 3 weeks old, just learning to fly and forage for themselves, although they're kind of convinced Lisa is mum. Hopefully, early in the new year, they can be released amongst friends.
I'll probably take them to the wetlands because there's a flock of the same little guys over there.
The Native Animal Trust's Christmas wish is for more volunteers to ensure any partridges, turtle doves, French hens, calling birds or even red-browed finches in need can be taken under their wing. Penny Evans, NBN News.
We're going to see more and more of this if the government continues to fail its promises to the people.
A combination of the Christmas King tides and a big swell has dramatically reshaped the dunes halfway along Nobby's Beach into a 2-metre high sand cliff. It's already become a magnet for holidaying youngsters, but long-time surf club members see it as a potential danger.
They tend to like to bury into those cliffs and play on those cliffs, and they could be easily buried if the sand gives away.
Locals believe overzealous coast care planting is partly to blame. The recently planted spinifex is holding the top layer of the dune together, while the swells are gouging out the loose sand beneath, causing a cliff instead of a steady slope. The council says its coast care groups have been planting in accordance with the Coastline Management Plan. But regardless, surf club members want people to exercise caution.
Be extremely careful, even for the joggers running across on the top of the ledge, that might give way, so give it a wide berth.
Paul Lobb, NBN News.
A brazen thief robbed an Everton Street home between 2 and 4 o'clock yesterday while the owner was out, taking thousands of dollars worth of possessions.
Most of the rooms in the house have been ransacked, and a good deal of the property have been stolen, all the way from the large TV through a DVD player, some iPods, some laptop computers, a lot of electrical gear, and probably gear you consider easily transferable into cash.
Her neighbours noticed a short man with a scar on his head hanging around the front of the property earlier in the afternoon.
But I suppose what this highlights is basically the importance for people, firstly, to take a little extra security over the Christmas break. A lot of people will be going away for lengthy periods of time, but also for neighbours to be more aware of what's going on in their street.
NBN knows at least 2 other homes in the street have been robbed recently, and while police don't believe crime rates are currently on the rise, there is an alarming seasonal trend.
There are periods of the year when they go up anyway. Usually you find in the summer months things like break-ins go up a little bit more because people spend more time out of their homes.
The message makes sure it's not just Santa keeping an eye on who's been good and bad this Christmas. Penny Evans, NBN News.
It's an absolutely ridiculous situation when we have a new coal loader being built just up the road. We have 1 million passengers a year going through Newcastle Airport. It's very, very busy here. We need a 4-lane bridge. It should have been a 4-lane bridge.
Only this government would have promoted him to make him now the Treasurer. The infrastructure in the Hunter has been suffering under his and this government's stewardship.
The French barque Henri was similar in appearance to Cook's Endeavour. She came to grief in the teeth of an easterly gale near Chalky's Rock at Swansea in June 1852, with the loss of only 1 life. All that remains of the timber ship are her cast iron anchors, and some keen local divers know where they are.
So the type of anchors that were on the Endeavour, or what we're talking about here, is our little treasure. We had some information as to where they are, and we thought some people would be interested in seeing what they really look like and maybe even preserving them for future generations.
According to those who've seen them, they're in good condition.
They've been pummeled by rocks a fair bit, but there's still a lot of iron on them.
The group, which includes members of the East Lake Macquarie Historical Society, is working with the State Heritage Office on a plan to raise the relics, which are not far from Frenchman's Beach, which was named in the ship's honour.
There's a little landmark gazetted in 1973 called Frenchman's Rock, and it was named after the wreck of the Henri, and sadly that's not exactly where it sank. The Henri sank a little bit further north.
Paul Lobb, NBN News.
I learned about cancer and whatnot in PE, and I liked it, so I just want to do that now, and there's good money in it.
Officially unveiled today, but like all important inventions, this micro power plant spent a long time on the drawing board. The facility uses a large range of biomass products, from agricultural waste to household green waste, as fuel to generate electricity. But the inventor says it won't replace coal-fired stations.
Coal generation is, whilst it's cheap, it is polluting, and the more options we have as a community, that's good for the environment.
The small-scale power plant will be significant for remote communities and has already attracted interest from Jordan in the Middle East, the Northern Territory and small island communities in the South Pacific. Instead of shipping in diesel, rural and remote places could use their own waste as fuel.
By reducing costs and keeping things small, we've got less transport fuel being used.
The plant has also been designed to work in conjunction with solar-powered facilities when they're inactive.
The biomass plant kicks in and it keeps all the solar plant hot. And so that the solar plant, as soon as the sun's up, it starts generating power. So it's actually very complementary with solar thermal. That's its real appeal in Australia in the long term.
Mitchell Hughes, NBN News.
Don't adjust your sets. This is a golf tournament, but not as you know it. Behind G-Man is footballer Clint Newton.
This sort of environment, it's makes people sort of do things that they probably don't usually do. Although some may say that I do this quite regularly.
From homemade superheroes to bumblebees and get-ups like this. And these girls are touring professionals.
It's supposed to be the most colourful outfit, so I had to make some effort.
I never usually get dressed up for 2 days, so this year I've gone out and I've got another outfit tomorrow.
It's just part of the reason why this event is so popular among pros and celebrities alike. And they're here because of this man, Jack Newton, who stood proudly in his event's 30th year.
It's like a massive Christmas party with a bit of golf thrown in.
And that's where it starts to get a bit serious. However, reward for performance at this event is measured in different ways.
The draw is seeded. If you don't play good enough, you tee off early tomorrow. So you don't want to be hitting off early after a big night.
It's sort of more of a matter of survival for 3 days, and then for a lot of the guys, I think it's sort of a good warm-up for Christmas.
All the while raising money for two things close to Jack's heart, junior golf and diabetes research. $3 million over the past 3 decades.
I think any Australian who looks after those with less opportunities are the ones we should admire most. And that's why I do admire them very much.
Jim Callanan, NBN News. Tis the season for giving. And despite their A-League season in a sick and sorry state, some perspective today for the Newcastle Jets as they played Santa for children at the John Hunter Hospital.
We look at it, I'm fighting fit, and these kids are, going through medical procedures and taking tablets just to survive.
But they wouldn't mind a special visit themselves this Christmas.
We actually wish Santa comes a bit early and gives us our surprise, and that's 3 points.
With just one win in 10 games, the Jets are also running a skeleton roster. Jobe Wheelhouse, the latest, forced out through suspension.
This time last season, things were falling our way, but it just goes to show how quick things can change.
It's a different tale for our women's team, who are still hoping for a top 2 finish and a vital home semi-final.
It'll go down to the wire, there's no doubt about that. That's why this week's crucial, that we get something out of it.
They currently sit second after last weekend's win, but coach Gary Phillips isn't getting too carried away just yet.
What concerns me is the fact that I think we play for about 65 minutes. We need to play for 90 minutes if we're going to be a chance in this competition.
But a prospect of finishing second has given the girls confidence that they can rival the men's competition.
I think it'd give us more supporters as well, like showing that we're just as good as the men and, we need the support as much as they do.
The government's tendered it out for contract. As far as we're concerned, we don't accept that. We know we can do the jobs better than private contractors can, and we believe that we should be doing it.
A Maitland fire crew was pulling out of the station for a Santa run to Talara Preschool about 11 o'clock this morning when they noticed what looked like a pipe bomb in a cardboard box leaning against the front of the station.
They pulled out the station, parked in a safe distance and notified the police.
The decision was taken to clear the area. Church Street was closed off between Kent Tubman Drive and High Street. Power to the inner city was disconnected as a precaution and hundreds of workers evacuated.
The whole precinct, yes, it's right up. The traffic lights here are out as well, so we're all told not to go back into the building.
A police rescue officer wearing protective clothing x-rayed the package to see what was inside. With fascinated bystanders looking on from the end of the street, he then gingerly removed a packet of 3 butane gas cartridges, normally used in a camping stove. Lastly, he picked up the box along with 2 short lengths of steel pipe.
The way it was structured by the x-rays, it was on the hoax side. There was no wiring or any other set mechanisms in the package.
With the all clear given, Maitland got back to its Christmas shopping about 2:30.
Maitland Leagues Club helped us out with placing people there, about 150 people, and now we can get back to our normal lives and we can get back to the fire station.
Paul Lobb, NBN News.
A long day followed an even longer night, and at this charity event, a late tee-off would be priceless.
I finished up about 2 o'clock this morning, so only beer, no spirits. So.
A good thing given he had a lead to protect, as did Sydney sider Sarah O, who was joined by Jack Newton himself, and what a playing partner.
It's my first time playing with Jack. He can hit it out there with just swinging with one hand. He's an awesome player.
He's also quite the fundraiser for causes supported by the likes of Wally Lewis, who remains the king but not of clubs, even with a clearer head than most.
The best news about having the surgery for epilepsy is that I still can't drink, so I haven't got to worry about the headaches that everyone else on the golf course seems to have. It's not about golf, it's about survival.
For Belmont professional Lee McKechnie, though, the hard work was over, given he's already secured his Aussie Tour card for next season, and that means stability.
Scheduling with your flights and accommodation and caddies and whatever, it's easier this time of year to book everything and know that you're actually playing in tournaments rather than trying to pre-qualify.
Adam McIlwright, NBN News.
Sitting down to a hearty dinner is something most of us will take for granted this Christmas, but it's a luxury many won't be able to afford.
Because a lot of the families that come in would not get to have a Christmas at home. So.
The Christian Life Church's Soul Cafe in Denison Street has seen a dramatic increase in patronage in the past 6 months, and it's not only the homeless reaching out for a hand.
But over the last 6 months, we've seen a real increase in families.
It's more than just an ordinary soup kitchen, offering patrons neighbourly care.
We use the food as a tool to actually build relationships with these people, because what we actually lack in Australia is community.
Developer GPT decided a few years ago it needed the Charlestown Bowling Club site in order to expand Charlestown Square Shopping Centre. It offered to construct a new club on the adjacent Ferris Oval, which was owned by the council. The issue split the community, but the council agreed, and the new $17 million club opened today to the delight of its members.
I think it will change the way Charlestown people spend their leisure time, because we've got a great facility to offer them here now.
It is never easy to consider surrendering what is community land to commercial development. However, in this case, we've got over $20 million worth of benefits coming into the local community that will, I believe, much more than offset the loss of Ferris Oval.
The bowling club chairman, the mayor and GPT's retail manager had a roll-up today to celebrate. As part of the deal, GPT has also built a new childcare centre at Highfields and is upgrading the nearby St John Oval.
Now that the bowling club's completed, we'll be able to take over the former bowling club and childcare, and to actually start commencing the construction of the new Frederick Street, which will then enable further expansion of Charlestown Square and the new Piazza and Restaurant and Lifestyle precinct.
Paul Lobb, NBN News.
I want to be a paediatrician, which involves studying medicine and hopefully at Newcastle next year.
Aspirations are to do commerce law at uni, and that goes for 5 or 6 years, so I'll see how it goes from there.
If this is a sign of things to come against Melbourne tomorrow night, then the Jets are still slight contenders for the A-League playoffs.
We're going to have to go close to winning every game.
They'll have to do without young gun Jason Nadovsky. Underneath the ice was a knee in desperate need of a second reconstruction. Undergoing surgery yesterday, he now faces a recovery of at least 6 months, and that's where Sean Rooney comes into frame, wishing, though, it was under different circumstances.
It's bad for Jason. I've known Jason since we were 11 years old, so it's no good. Like you said, I don't wish injuries upon anyone, but yeah, hopefully I can get something in the future.
His goal is to secure a long-term deal with an A-League club, and what was a 6-week injury waiver could now see him wear the jumper into an Asian Champions League campaign.
We'll blood him sparingly probably early on. He'll start on the bench this weekend.
Kaz Patafta comes into the side to host the victory while Song returns from injury. Adam McIlrick, NBN News.
Contact people for if their businesses are broken into. We assist the youth liaison officers.
Some of them are, bedded up and, can't get out of bed for Christmas, which is very disappointing. But seeing them was around before to see all the kids and put a smile on their face